Today, I'm going to talk about how authenticity is overrated.
Welcome to Missing the Mark, where we look for meaning in strange places. I'm Christopher.
So, there are two meanings to authenticity. I need to get this out of the way at the start. And one meaning to authenticity is, roughly speaking, sincerity. Or, to put it even more simply, honesty. Now, I do not mean that authenticity in the sense of honesty is overrated. A person should always be honest. So whether you're talking to people in person or on the internet, or if you're doing some sort of, a YouTube video, or if you're doing whatever the heck you're doing, you should always be honest. You should always, that is to say, make everything that you say an attempt to communicate the truth. It may be highly contextual. It may be, in one-on-one conversations especially, you may be saying things that might be generally misleading, but that the person you're talking to would understand. That's fine. It's always, your goal should be to communicate the truth along the lines of, the best way that you can. So, authenticity in that sense is not overrated. In that sense, to the degree that authenticity just means honesty, then yeah, it's not overrated. Everyone should be honest. Everyone should strive to be honest. Let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. Okay, so that caveat out of the way, because without addressing that, it could easily be misunderstood. Okay, but there are several other senses of authenticity, and they all tend to relate, roughly speaking, to trying to act or communicate in a way that is not tailored to your audience. That is to say, where you are simply communicating, roughly speaking, for lack of a better way of putting it, basically, as if you're communicating to yourself. So, like, if I were saying this to me, how would I say this? And so, an example of being inauthentic would be to use slang that you don't normally use in an effort to sound like the people that you're talking to. Now, this can be, of course, it's really hard to use slang that you aren't used to well. So, but actually every now and again, it even turns out to be, useful. You can see this every once in a while in one of my videos. There'll be some term that someone comes up with, or, that's popular amongst, some people that it's not a term I ever normally use. But at least to the best of my understanding of what the term means, it really captures the meaning of a thing I want to describe in the moment. I actually recently recorded a video where I mentioned that the sort of more modern equivalent of the word playboy is player. Somebody who is out simply to have fun and to indulge in experiences, especially to use other people, especially a male using women, simply for the ends of his own gratification, without without respect to their actual natures, any sort of responsibility, and so on. And the thing is, like, it's actually a really useful term, and so, now in that case too, because I'm not certain I'm using it quite correctly, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty close to it, so I don't use it as if exactly I know what I'm talking about, and frankly, I think even if I did, it'd be good to define it simply because it's not universal and everyone would need it anyway. But so, like, you can use slang terms you're not used to as long as you take care to be clear about what your understanding of the thing is, at which point it just becomes sort of a self-defined term in context. And so you can do this in an entirely authentic way, even though it's not like the thing that would come most naturally to your expression, as long as you're making it clear that you are using some form, as long as you're not pretending that you are using this thing naturally, you can use it quite authentically, even if it doesn't, come up in the moment. And so, in a broader sense though, and I've seen a lot of people talking about authenticity as if it's like some sort of difficult to achieve thing that you must labor at in a great way. And after much study and much practice, you can eventually become authentic. And it's actually really trivial to be authentic. All you need is some goal that you think is good that you are trying to achieve, and then just try to achieve it. And, well, you're just being authentic at that point. Like, that's it. That's all that's really required. It's not a big, complicated thing. It's not some, like, difficult skill you really need to work on. All you need to do is have a goal that you think is good, try to accomplish it because it's good, and then just be honest while you're doing it. That's it. That's all being authentic is. Um, and by the way, if you lack the goal, if you're simply doing whatever you're doing in like whatever way you naturally tend to react to things, that's authentic in the sense of like you're not pretending to be something that you're not. But on the other hand, it's not authentic in the sense that you don't actually have a reason for what you're doing. I mean, you're just kind of, if you're just being sort of like an animal that's just sort of acting by instinct, well, you wouldn't actually be you wouldn't be communicating with people, not by instinct. And so the thing that you're doing really is acting as if you have some sort of goal that you are trying to achieve. You're talking as if there's some sort of idea that you're trying to communicate, but you don't actually have a goal. And so in a much more fundamental sense, this is inauthentic behavior because you're not actually trying to do anything, but you're acting as if you are. And so, yeah, it's this whole thing about authenticity. I would never, as I said, counsel anyone be inauthentic. But on the other hand, I would counsel people to say, don't worry about whether or not you're authentic. If you are worrying about whether or not you're authentic, you've missed the point, both of authenticity and of human life. Give up that part. Don't worry about that part. Authenticity is not a goal to strive for in itself. Authenticity is simply like not failing to strive for some goal, basically. It's achievable, but it's not a thing that's achievable directly. It's a thing that's a byproduct of doing what you should be doing anyway. So, like, if you're trying to communicate to people, do so with a purpose in mind, a good purpose in mind, and then try to achieve that purpose because it's good. And the authenticity just comes along for the ride without you thinking about it, because, like, whatever you are doing, however naturally or unnaturally it comes to you, if you are seeking to achieve a goal because it is good, you're being authentic. And yeah, that's just sort of a kind of side thing. So like, yeah, you shouldn't pretend to be something that you're not. But like pretending to be something you're not is not going to help any goal you have whatsoever. No good goal anyway. And so it just won't even come up as long as you have a goal that you can see is a good goal, is in like the, morally good goal. Just go for it. And it really doesn't actually matter, by the way, how you feel or whether, how stiff or unnatural you feel. If you are trying to honestly pursue a goal that you consider to be good, the feeling natural will eventually come in time. You can have stage fright all you want, and then but like you have to put stage fright aside if you're getting up on a stage to talk to people about something, because talking to people about that thing is going to do the useful action of communicating some truth to them. So yeah, like you can feel all knotted up inside, but the thing is, it's not that you should pretend to be confident. It's that you should take that fear and set that fear aside, because it has nothing to do with achieving your goal. Just push it away. And that is, incidentally, I mean, I got over stage fright like 25 years ago, so it's kind of stretching back in my memory at this point. Giving like class presentations in high school, roughly, and then later in other contexts and so on. Like, that's actually the way you get over it. It's not that like you pretend to be something. It's like, okay, yep, I am feeling terrified that I'm going to screw up, or that there are all these people and a large number of people could do all sorts of terrible things to me, and well, this is all irrelevant. Doesn't matter. Just push it aside. Direct your focus on the thing you're actually trying to accomplish. Like, I'm going to talk about this thing. And you get up, and instead of thinking about the audience or thinking about your yourself or your feelings or whatever, you think about the subject that you're telling to your audience. And I actually really like the metaphor of jumping in the pool. Because actually I can remember, I was a very, very shy child. And I'm still shy in the sense of my instinct is to not talk to people I don't know very well. But I talk to strangers, it doesn't come up frequently, but like if it comes up at all, I will just talk to strangers because I got over it. And I can remember when I got over it. It was actually a moment on the school bus, which to me felt exactly like when you jump into the pool and the water's going to be cold. There's this moment, like you force yourself to jump, and there's this moment where you're suspended in the air and you're committed, and you know this is going to suck, and you wish you could fly, and why the heck did I do this? And then you fall in the water, and there you are, and then you deal with where you are. And I remember, in the moment when when I began the process of getting over being shy, when I forced myself to turn around to another kid on the bus and say hi. At which point I was committed to actually being in a conversation because, like, I'm facing that person and I've opened up the line of communication, and there's that, like, terrible moment where you've initiated something and the consequences of it haven't actually started rolling yet. But then what happens very quickly is you just focus on the conversation. You see what they say and you respond to the thing that they say, and you push aside the fear because the fear isn't the useful part. The thing that's actually going on is. And another one of my favorite quotes with regard to being shy, it's not that I ever stopped feeling that fear. It's that I got really good at making myself just talk to a person even though I felt the fear. I got really good at just pushing that aside in the sense of not thinking about it and just focusing on the thing in front of me, the task at hand. And it really reminds me, when I was in grad school, a math professor of mine who was an avid bicyclist had a quote in his email signature that was from a famous cyclist. I found out he was a famous cyclist by Googling him. But his quote, the quote that he used was, "It doesn't get any easier. You just go faster." And it strikes me that there are a lot of things like that in life where it's not, because in cycling, like, it's not that like bicycling gets easier. You still push really hard. It's just as your muscles get stronger, when you push really hard, that translates into more movement. And that's because, like, you adjust your goals to what you can do. So that really, it's not everything in life, but there are a lot of things in life that work that way. And I found that overcoming shyness is very much like that. It's not that you're ever not afraid of it. It's that you get really, really good at just directing your attention onto the useful part, which is the actual, like, active communication. In the case of, whether you're being shy and talking to people, or whether it's, stage fright and you're giving a presentation or whatever, the fear, the feelings, the anticipation, the worry, none of these things are relevant to the act of communication. And they're not where your attention should be. And so just over time, as you practice, you get better and better at just shoving the things that you shouldn't be paying attention to aside, out of your attention, and focusing your attention on the thing you should be paying attention to. It doesn't mean you feel those feelings any less. It just means you don't pay any attention to them, and you get better and better at just shoving them aside and not paying any attention to them. And so that is basically the thing with authenticity. If you're worried about it in this sort of context of, like, oh, I don't feel confident. I just want to bite my nails and run away. I don't feel like, it doesn't matter. That's not relevant. It literally does not matter. Like, it can have practical consequences, but once you can overcome it by just simply ignoring it and focusing on the task actually at hand, well, all of that becomes irrelevant, and you're just focused on the task at hand. And the fact that there's all this stuff that doesn't matter is not being inauthentic in presenting the thing. So, like, you shouldn't pretend to be confident. That's not doing you any good anyway, because if you're pretending to be confident, you're not focusing on the communication that you're there to actually do, or the interaction, or whatever exactly the task is. You're still focusing on yourself, just in a different sort of way. You need to just focus on the actual task at hand, and then do that task at hand as well as you can in the moment, and learn from it and improve and do better. And so that's why I say authenticity is overrated. It's a thing that basically, it's in a sense, it's a little bit like, not so much humility actually as modesty. Like, you cannot focus on modesty because you're focused on yourself. In a sense, you can't focus on humility because humility is by definition focusing on something other than yourself. And so it's a complicated subject, and I don't want to oversimplify the pursuit of a virtue here. There's a sense in which humility is a thing that cannot be achieved by focusing on it, for the simple reason that it is by definition the focusing on of something other than yourself. That's a massive oversimplification with a lot of caveats to it. But kind of like that. So authenticity is one of those things that, like, it doesn't make any sense to pursue. Forget about it. Along with all the other things, like, being afraid or being worried or any of that stuff. Have the goal and try to achieve that goal because it's good. Just for the sake of doing good because it's good. And, you're not going to be perfect at it. And, you'll screw up. And, one of the most important skills in life is being able to pick yourself up from your failures and move on and try again, even though you'll probably fail, at least in part, again, because, like, what else are you going to do? There's someone I knew who had worked on nuclear submarines said, what's the procedure for uncontrollable flooding? The answer is, try to control it. Because, like, what else are you going to do? Play gin rummy till you die? You might be wrong. It might actually be controllable flooding, in which case you succeeded. And if you're wrong, well, you were going to die anyway. So it's not like you missed out on the thing that could have saved you. And so in like manner, yeah, you're going to fail at being perfect. But, like, well, I mean, what's your alternative? Committing suicide? No. So, like, you just have to pick yourself up, be really good at forgiving yourself, and move on and try again. And, yeah, like, do that and the authenticity will just come. And even if it doesn't, who cares? You're still actually trying to achieve a good goal for the sake of doing good. And, the authenticity doesn't really matter. Though, technically, you'll have it anyway. Until next time, may you hit everything you aim at.